Welcome to Eyes and Teeth, Season 8, Episode 95. Andrew Van Buren is an encyclopaedia of showbusiness anecdotes and true historian of magic and circus. Today you will hear a cavalcade of names that will just make you smile and reminisce along with us. From his days on famous TV and movie sets as a kid, to performing on countless TV shows and working with the best in the business, Andrew has done it all, and he's still doing it all. Andrew grew up surrounded by entertainment. It's in his DNA, but he's made it his own identity, and he's so modest and passionate about his work, and also about keeping the memories and people we knew alive with his stories. We speak of ventriloquists Neville King, Albert Saveen and Ray Alan. Andrew talks of the night he made Peter Kay appear on stage, as if by magic, as well as working with comedians such as Arthur Askey, Norman Collier, to destroy in plates with Sherrie Hewson on the Generation Game. We talk about re-educating Archie and our collaboration over the years, as well as Andrew's incredible Philip Astley project. His story, along with his parents, Connie and Fred Van Buren, is one special journey, and I welcome you aboard the story within Eyes and Teeth when I talk to the wonderful Mr. Andrew Van Buren.
Hello, thanks for asking me along.
Yes, and I can see your emblem, which we both are sporting, our Water Rats emblem, and you were key actually at bringing me into the Grand Order. You were one of those lovely people that said I should be part of this. So thank you. I'll thank you now in case I forget later. But it's never forgotten, you know, this sort of thing where you're invited to something. You know, I've never really got invited to parties much, and so to get invited into the Grand Order of Water Rats, one of the biggest parties in the world, was incredible, and partly thanks to you. So thanks for that.
Well, it was on your own caliber that you got in, and that's the main thing.
Oh, bless you! I didn't know I had a gun. But this is that a gun? A caliber? I don't know. It sounds like one.
It's the size of one, isn't it?
Yes. I'll research that before I delete. It is noted that you have a similar start to my Arthur Lager. You, Andrew Van Buren, were born in the trunk.
Yeah. That's
I love that description. That's great. Can you explain the wonderful Fred and Connie? What went on there?
Yeah, well, with my family, how they got into show business started with my father. He was born in Sandbach in Cheshire, and when he was a little 4-year-old, this was he was born in 1932. So in around about 1936, he went along to the butcher's shop with the money for the meat for the week, you know, heading into the war years, so everything was rationed. And he came home and said, Mum, the butcher started selling elephant meat. It's like, what? It's like, he started selling elephant meat. And what it was, in the window, there was the picture of the pig for the pork, the cow for the beef, the sheep for the lamb, and there was a picture of an elephant. And it's then that he realised, his mum explained to him, it's an advert for a circus, poster for a circus. So,
wow.
Yeah. And so she took him along to see the circus, Chapman's Circus, and fell in love with all the sides of it. He loved the clowning side and everything as a little boy. And then a couple of years later, he bumped into somebody called Bob Gandy, who he ran a small circus at the time, and that was an open-air circus. And he got talking to him and then found out that Gandys were based about 2 miles down the road from where he lived. So he basically went along and from a young boy almost ran away to the circus, learnt the trade, went into clowning. He started doing the trapeze, he had a dog and monkey act and the magic. Then he met my mum. They say it was love at first sight, but I think he also realised she was the right size to go in the boxes. And then they started concentrating on the magic, and they kind of had an amazing career from there, working all the banqueting scene down in London and working for people like Walt Disney and Roy Hord, people like that. And then I came along, and the first time I went on stage was 7 weeks old in the Great Room Grosvenor House. They took me on stage and showed me to the audience. So it wasn't quite born in a trunk, but
No.
yeah, I was I was on stage before I was born with my mom, and then at 6 weeks old they took me on stage. So yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. What a beautiful story. It's just wonderful to be born into that, really. And when did you start realizing that your parents were in show business and they were very successful in show business? When was it where you were maybe in the wings and going, wow, that's mum and dad. And look at how big this is.
It's a really weird one because I mean it's amazing in one way, and it's kind of a bind in another way. I mean, I wouldn't change a thing. I've had an incredible life, and it's amazing growing up around the people that I've grown up with, but you kind of grow up in a world where there's an expectation before you even do anything.
Yes.
So your parents are the yardstick that you're judged by, which is why, I mean, I'll come to this, but that's why I started doing a different act as opposed to just taking over the magic, because I wanted to break that mold of the comparison.
Okay.
But as to when I realised it, it took a long time to realise that I was doing something a little bit different to the norm. Because, yeah, I would sit in the wings and watch my parents work, and I would help them in the act, and pushing props on and off at a young age. But it was only in my school years that I started encountering what you could call reality. And I realized, because the big turning point, I was about, I don't know, 8 years old, and I went back to school and they said, what have you been doing in the summer holidays? And it's like, well, I've been down at Elstree Studios and I've spent time in the Muppet Studios and the Muppet Workshops, and they've been filming Sapphire and Steel down there, and they were filming the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back film down there, and all it. And I've been on the Dagobah set, and all of the other kids and the teachers went, yeah, of course you have.
They didn't
And
believe you at
that's when
all.
it was that kind yeah, they thought it was, I was kidding. So that's when there was the kind of, oh, hang on, this is not normal, is it?
Yeah.
That was
Wow.
a reality crash of, oh, I'm in show business.
Oh, that's incredible. I mean, to come back and you're really excited coming back as a kid and telling them, I've been hanging out with the Muppets and I've just been seeing this set of Star Wars. And you want to tell someone, don't you? It's something that you're excited about, but they just didn't believe you. So
No,
it's too big and it's out of the ordinary for a lad in school to actually be around that world. But
yeah,
you did live it.
and this is the thing, because I mean, I look back and it's amazing the world that it was, because I mean, it was like we had 2 years touring with Windsor Davis and Donna Stell. And they just released the song "Whispering Grass," with the Ain't Our Thought Mum show.
Yeah, it was a
And
great show.
yeah, I mean, it was massive. So it was one of those situations where I was learning. It's like the water rats. The first time I heard about the water rats
Yes.
was from comedian Bob Andrews, who was a water rat. And I mean, I used to spend time with him. He taught me how to play chess. He actually took me into the sea, teaching me how to swim at Felixstowe. He used to talk to me about the water rats, and that's where the link with the water rats came for me, and the awareness at that young age. And it was the only thing I ever wanted to kind of really join. So that was really cool, and just great memories of Bob Andrews working. And I mean, another one that sticks in my mind. You've got the interesting comedy, Victor Borger.
Oh, he's
You know,
incredible, isn't he? I've heard a few people talk about Victor, and I love his work. I've seen a lot of his videos, and what an artist he was.
yeah, and really kind of offstage quiet, but on stage subtle but massively powerful performer. I remember the first time we worked with him, and the stage, there was a clear empty stage, and they got dry ice all over it. And then you heard the piano playing, but he wasn't there. And what he'd done, they'd got a lift in the stage,
Okay.
sunk down with the dry ice covering the lift, and then he came up on the lift playing. And as soon as he got to the ground level, this was the payoff of the gag. He stood up, turned to the audience, and you then saw he got a cigarette, took it out, wafting as though the dry ice was his smoke. Just
Wow.
great subtle entrance.
It's comedy you wouldn't expect, would it? But from a classical pianist such as Victor, and you wouldn't expect him to have the comedy, but the lines he come out with were just so original and funny. And I love watching him. He was so unique as a performer. That was so great to see. It's incredible that you got to see him work so closely as well.
Eyes and teeth.
I just don't know where to start with you, because not only have you had an incredible career, your parents had an incredible career. It's a wonderful thing because it's not just circus, it's magic, it's stunts. The Van Burens weren't just an act with magic, they were performers on an epic scale, weren't they? What was the biggest thing that they'd done? I know that they were really known for vanishing a motorcycle with a rider, but that was their signature, wasn't it?
Yeah, my dad came up with that idea in 1976 because it went back to my dad's early years of working in circus, when he realised that if he was doing magic, it'd have to be performed surrounded. Everything
Yes.
needed to be in the round, whereas a lot of the classical magicians and illusionists of then all relied on stage principles with the audience just in front.
Wow.
It was that kind of mix of making everything, and sometimes old effects, practical for in the round. And that's when my dad was toying with the idea of what to do on a grand scale. He'd already invented a lot of illusions and built them, because when he was a youngster, he did an apprenticeship as a cabinet maker, which set him up for being able to make his own magic boxes and such.
Brilliant.
Like, and that worked really well. I mean, even as a youngster, he made coffins at one point. In fact, there was a limerick done about him. It was there once was a man called Fred who made boxes to bury the dead. He changed his position, became a magician, and now he's known as Van Buren instead.
That's amazing.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so he kind of, at the time, Siegfried and Roy had just come on the scene. They were making it big in Vegas, and they got all the wild animals. My dad was talking to the Chipperfield family, and they said, why don't you have tigers and lions? And my dad wasn't keen on the idea of that for a number of reasons, one of which is when you're not working, you've got to feed the animals. So it's like an expense there. So that's when he came up with the idea of a motorbike, and they created the vanished motorbike in the round. So that became the biggie that my dad was known for. And then obviously I later inherited that when I started doing the magic myself and left my own act alone for a while. But then over the years, I've kind of taken it a step further and started doing occasionally car launches, making the cars appear. We made the XJ Jag appear and a few BMWs and things like that over the years. So
Wow.
big stuff. Not quite the Statue of Liberty, but fairly big stuff.
Well, they've always got bigger statues in America, aren't they? Everything's bigger over there, so we'll just do it. We'll just do it slicker.
Yeah, it's to do with the weather, I think, over there. But there you go.
Is that something that is on YouTube that people can see? The vanishing motorcycle. Is it on any shows?
Yeah, do you know? It's really funny with the magic because I mean, with a lot of the magic now, the problem you're up against is with YouTube. If you are a creator or originator, then quite often you can put it on YouTube, and not long afterwards, somebody has made a copy across the other side of the world. So, do you show it and then stamp your mark that you created it, or do you keep it a little bit elusive and just work it to the few? Because, I mean, you and I have both done TV work. When you've appeared on TV, you've been seen by millions in an instant. It's a matter of coming up with new material because people have seen it. So with an illusion, it's not like writing a gag. It's building something, it's creating something. It's a big commitment.
Massive process, isn't it?
Yeah, before you even work it. So we've tended to kind of keep the magic side a little bit kind of away from TV. In the early days, my dad appeared on with the motorbike on Seaside Special. There was a 2-episode series called Arrivals. There was a few appearances with the motorbike, but that's kind of in the 70s. Since then, the only TV work I've kind of taken, I've been asked to do the motorbike on TV, but I've kind of avoided it and just concentrated on the circus skills for the TV work, really.
Well, it's worked for you, isn't it? Don't if it's not broke, they say.
Yeah, and this is the thing, because
The plates are
I
broke,
guess I've,
though, sometimes.
yeah, the plate spinning,
But
definitely.
not when you do it.
Well, it's been known. I have left the stage looking like a Greek restaurant occasionally, but
Oh, wow. But the Van Burens, they weren't just the UK's #1 touring magic show. They were Europe's #1 touring magic show. So that's something wonderful to sort of carry on, if you will. You carry on a title, of your family name, which is incredible. You've kept it. And what you're doing with Magic and Circus is incredible, Andrew. You've really taken on that baton and you pass it on to a younger generation anyway, because you're so kind and giving. But what you're still doing out there is incredible. I can't wait to talk about this, because what you provide for as a showman, and you are such a great showman, you really do put on a show. But just from the stage, the theatre that is built within your lorry, I will get on to talk about the Van Buren's Victorian Theatre of Wonders. I mean, it's all in that title. It is just such an incredible thing that you've taken on.
well, it's that thing of doing something a little bit different. I mean, like I said earlier, I've kind of always tried to do my own thing because
Yes.
of growing up in the shadow of my family. And I'm incredibly proud of my parents and their achievements. Amazing. And I was fortunate in having that start of growing up and being able to mix with the celebrities and stars and the speciality acts of the time,
Yes.
which was amazing. The bottom of the bills sometimes that were far more interesting than the top of the bills. I loved the special acts.
Sure. Thank you.
Well, it's true.
No, it is. Yeah.
The ventriloquists, the jugglers, the magicians, the acrobats. They're the ones that keep the bums on the seats until the big name comes on.
Great personalities as well, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think that was a big influence. I mean, it's like growing up around them and remembering, the great acts that I saw as a youngster, like George Carl, who did
Oh,
the wonderful
fantastic.
microphone and getting tangled up, and and I mean, there was Fatini, who a lot don't know of. He used to come on as a drunk character in a top hat and tails with a cigar and a bottle of wine, and he needed to get a light for his cigar, and he found this standard lamp on the stage or in the ring, this tall lamp, gas lamp, and he would climb up it with the storyline of needing to light the cigar, balancing on top of it and the swaying with
Wow.
it. The drama and tension of that was such a massive influence on me, of knowing, an audience needs to enjoy themselves, but also have tension at times and drama, and you need to take them on a bit of a journey. So when we were touring with Windsor and Don, Windsor Davis used to say, "You've got it made. You'll take over from your mum and dad. They'll hand it to you." But I want to do something different, Teamed up with a Hungarian circus artist. He taught me how to unicycle, and then I started the juggling. And then there was a plate spinner called Wolfgang Barcelli, who was the governor of plate spinners. He was the one who did all the 60s and 70s TV work. Unfortunately, he wasn't well. We were friends. I asked his permission, and he gave me the go-ahead to kind of carry on the mantle of plate spinning. That really worked well for me. He really gave me the go-ahead kind of thing, and I got known for the plate spinning. So before I took over the magic, it was that thing of I started my own act of unicycling, juggling, plate spinning, became established with that, and then people wanted a second spot. And magic came in, and I started doing the two spots together. But the drama from seeing those early performers translated into the plate spinning.
You were Van Buren Jr. in the early days, weren't you? When did that stop? When did you go to Andrew Van Buren?
Yeah, because I mean, we were working. My mum retired first. My dad was working with the team of dancers and everything that were with the show, because the show that my dad was touring grew massive. I mean, at one point we had a circus tent. We had a 3,000-seater circus tent. It was a fleet of lorries, and it became too big, really, particularly when we were doing the shows abroad. I mean, memories of touring Sweden and Germany and places like that as a kid. So my dad continued performing, although slowed off. I established myself. I mean, I did my first solo gig when I was about 11 years old. Although I'd worked with my mum and dad, I went in doing my own trick cycling act. And then when I was 12, I realised I got a problem because I couldn't get to the gigs because I was too young to drive. So I employed my first assistant then, who was 19. And she used to drive me to the gigs and pass the equipment to me and everything.
Okay, wow, she's 8 years older than you. Wow.
Yeah. So, and working all the nightclubs, the raves, the working men's clubs, places I wasn't old enough to go into, were employing me to go in and do the work. So we were kind of running at the same time.
Yes.
But it was frustrating because my dad was doing all the great theatre shows and the circus shows, and I was doing the raves, the nightclubs, and the kind of bottom of the ladder jobs.
Wow.
So it was kind of, you looked at it and thought, what's it going to take for me to get this bigger and better work?
Okay.
That I've just left working with my mum and dad.
Right.
And now I'm doing all this tough stuff like the raves. And my dad said from the start, you need to be junior so they know there's two of us and who you are and who I am. So there's a kind of separation. And although we work together quite often, we work separately most of the time at that point. And then my dad, we did a show. I came in and worked with him in 1996 for a friend of ours, George Cavalcade. And my dad, he closed the show. We did the motorbike. I was riding the motorbike at the time and vanishing on it. At the end, my dad said, I really enjoyed that. That's it. And I said, what do you mean that's it? He says, that's it. I'm finished. That's the last one.
Was that his goal?
Yeah. I mean, there was no inkling towards it.
No.
He'd not said, oh, I'm slow. He had slowed off. He was taking less work. He was picking and choosing. But it was just, he really enjoyed it. He'd got a lot of friends in the show with him, and he really stormed it. And I don't know if he'd been thinking about it or what, but it was just that, bam, I'm stopping. That was 1996. So it was kind of, I'd been running for about 15 years at that point, doing my own stuff.
Okay.
Started doing the magic. And so it was a kind of natural, okay, I'll do more of the magic now because my dad's eased off. And that's when I gently stopped using the junior moniker and started just being Van Buren.
And it's paid off, hasn't it? It's amazing, though. But can we talk about some of the performers that you probably grew up getting to know, and then you started to work with them? So we're talking about comedians such as Bob Monkhouse, Mike Yarwood, Frankie Howard. So you must have been around the dressing rooms when these great comedy names were about. What's your memory of sort of seeing these in the wings?
Yeah, it was amazing working with so many amazing names. I mean, I feel fortunate because I kind of caught the tail end of variety as it was.
Yes.
So you look back and think, well, working like with Arthur Askey, and on the same bill was Bob and Alf Pearson.
Wow.
And it's just like, wow, this is like, these are names that, I mean, unfortunately, fame is a fleeting commodity. There's few names that continue after they've gone. But, like Arthur Askey, absolute iconic character, did so much work. A lovely man. Looking back at some of them, I mean, the fortunate thing is, it's like with Little and Large, Cannon and Ball, people like that. Well, particularly Little and Large. My mum and dad worked with him, with both Sid and Eddie.
Yes.
At the same time, Michael Barrymore was comparing the show. He used to, his trick that made him stand out was he would stand on his head.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I grew up with them, and then later had the fortunate opportunity to work and tour with them myself. So, I've been lucky touring with some great shows. I mean, the Night at the Music Hall shows were just amazing casts. The first one I did was with the Minstrel show, which was the Crankies were top of the bill for the first half, and then the Minstrels did the second half. Leslie Crowther was in that. The second of the Night at the Music Hall tours, that was Paul Shane from Heidi Eye.
Okay.
There was Edmund Lockridge. There was Jimmy Casey and Eli doing the box sketch.
They've done the famous box sketch, did they? Wow.
Yeah, and do you know, this will interest you because also on the bill was Ray Alan with Lord Charles,
Oh, brilliant.
and Ray stooged the box.
Did he?
Yeah, so it was like my mum and dad had worked with Jimmy James, working the original, working the
Okay.
box sketch, and then I worked with Jimmy's son, Jimmy Casey, working the box sketch, and Ray Allen was that. There was a great write up in Grimsby of that show. There's a name drop, Grimsby. The write up said this show is a show with something for everybody. Ray Allen and Paul Shane. Paul Shane provides the fish and chips. Ray Allen provides the caviar.
Nice. What a description.
That's
It's
great, isn't it?
it's true class though, isn't it? And that does cover all aspects of audience, doesn't it, really? Caviar and fish and chips.
Yeah, and that's a great way of looking at it. I mean, Ray was wonderful. Again, Ray Allen was someone I grew up with. Mum and Dad worked with him a lot, and I kind of was always around Lord Charles from a young age. And then it was nice because I did a lot with Ray in later years. My first ever cruise ship, we did 15 years on and off the ships. My first cruise was with Ray Allen, and as soon as he knew I was on there and he knew it was my first cruise, he asked to meet up. We met up, and he just gave me a how to survive cruising lecture. Just do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. You know, and I learned so much from Ray. And I mean, on the ventriloquist side, there was Albert Saveen and
Yeah,
Daisy.
Daisy May. Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, Albert, he took over managing my mum and dad from Don Ross and Pauline Marks. Um, Don Ross was married to Gertie Katana, and he used to put a lot of shows on. And sharing the office was Pauline Marks, who was auntie to Joan and Jackie Collins. So it was a really good combination that looked after my mum and dad. And then as they slowed off, Albert Savine took over managing them. I mean, Albert was a character in himself. I mean, I remember as a kid going to his house, and you know, if he was working on something, there'd be the knock on the door, and there'd be, "Wait a minute," and you could hear the scurrying of things being put away, you know, covered up that he was working on, and then he'd answer the door and let you in. The house was pristine, immaculate. And then the times that you'd phone, and Daisy May would answer the phone, you know, and is Albert there? And she'd say, "No, he's not here at the moment. Can you phone back later?" And it's like, "Oh, okay." And you'd phone back later, you know.
Yeah, I've heard a few people, yourself and Roy Haddis, tell me that story, but I think he'd done it to everybody. You know, you'd phone up 5 minutes later, and he would answer the phone. Oh yeah, Daisy told me you called. It's
And he
crazy, man.
believed it. Yeah.
Yes.
And of course, he got the dogs and the parrot. And yeah, I mean, great characters that he'd got. But again, he was somebody that I kind of grew up around. There's been so many. I mean, Cannon and Ball. Yeah, so many amazing names. And then in more recent years, I've been fortunate to work with people like Paul O'Grady, Danny LaRue. I did a 9.5 week tour with that ended up 3 years.
John
And one of the
Inman.
yeah, John Inman. One of the big names was Peter Kay.
Fantastic. And did he get into one of your illusions?
Yeah, that was such a precision engineered event. It was a show with the cast of Coronation Street, which
Oh,
we did a
brilliant.
lot of. And always Peter Shaw, who put the shows on, would ask us if we could involve somebody from the cast. So we'd make someone appear, float, or push fluorescent light tubes through somebody or whatever. And this one time, I was sworn to secrecy because the only people that knew who this particular show's guest star was going to be was Sally Lindsay, the producer, and us, and obviously the person himself. So the cast and no one knew who this guest was going to be.
Wow.
So we smuggled him into the theatre, rehearsed the effect covertly so no one knew what was going on, did our act to close the first off with a special guest, brought the box on, showed it empty, closed it, opened it up, bang, out steps Peter Kay.
Brilliant. Well, what reaction that must have caused.
Well, the audience reaction was massive, but also in the wings was most of the cast. And I mean, their reaction was equally as big, you know. It was this shock of, here's Peter Kay. And then he did 25 minutes, which was just a masterclass of wonderful comedy.
Eyes and teeth.
You've told me so many memories about the wonderful Neville King, one of my favorite all-time ventriloquists. You've sent me some great footage, and I thank you for that. Some great DVDs of his work, and his act stands the test of time. He really was, his act would work now. He's so funny, but nearly every TV clip interview that he would do would be different. He'd do something different every time. He'd never really repeat anything, Neville.
No,
He was
Neville
unpredictable,
was
wasn't he? Unpredictable.
Oh yeah. Neville was wonderful. I mean, we did a lot with Neville over the years. I mean, with going back to the vanishing motorbike, it was my mum and dad's first TV appearance with the motorbike. Neville was the compere in the show, and at the end, my mum and dad closed the show with the motorbike vanished. It was in a cabaret setting, so the audience were all the way around it, and my mum vanished on the motorbike. There's it, wrap up of the show. Neville comes on. Thank you ever so much. Then off the cuff, ladies and gentlemen, a little question for you. Would you do me a favour? If you see a young lady dressed in blue on a blue motorbike, please send her back because we need it for the next show tomorrow. And we took that kind of tagline off Neville and used it ever since.
He knew the funny, didn't he? He just knew the funny. He knew what he was doing, where comedy was concerned.
He was just a real funny guy. He was never, just all the time there was comedy there, just naturally. We did panto together, and I mean, there's 2 pantomimes where I've worked with comedy geniuses that have been an absolute pleasure. One was Neville King, and the other was Johnny Casson.
Oh, Johnny. I love Johnny.
Just great fun. I mean, standing on stage alongside both of them, and just, me feeding the lines and not knowing what's going to come back. It's just amazing.
It's been nerve-wracking. That was nerve-wracking for you, not knowing what.
Yeah, I mean,
you got the next line.
You knew that the feed line for the next bit would come, but you just didn't know what would happen before then.
Yes.
There'd just be some subtle bit of business or something thrown in there that was great. And I mean, Neville, we used to go out for a drink quite often afterwards, and we used to go to this little village pub together, and a few members of the cast, and it'd be like we walked into just absolute chaos, because as he walked in, it was like he was bringing the farmyard with him. He'd be making all these animal noises. And this one place, they got this giant, massive Rottweiler dog behind the bar, and Neville would goad it crazy to the point where it was nearly jumping over the bar.
Really was good at doing animal noises, wasn't he? I think it was him and Norman Collier would go to like Indian restaurants after a show, and they'd have dog fights under the table, wouldn't they? They both would do the dog voice.
Yeah, I mean, we did a show. They created a one-off show once, and I just so wish it had been videoed. It was Norman Collier, Neville King, and ourselves. It was like a sketch show.
Oh yes.
So it was all business from the start. So Neville went on at the start as like the introduction, but conductor. And he did this routine with an imaginary orchestra at the start, warming them up and getting them tuned up and everything. It was hilarious. And it took gags to the next level. It's like, both of them did. I remember walking into the theatre, and the first sight I saw was Norman Collier on his hands and knees picking bullets up off the floor, off the stage. It's like, what have we come to? This is crazy. And they do gags like the old gag of it's 100 years today since the theatre balcony last collapsed.
Yes.
The old gag. But took it to the next level. They'd had me record a creaking sound. And then they got somebody in the circle with some handfuls of rice. So you've got the creaking sound, but then he'd throw some rice over the audience below.
3D, 4D, isn't it? That.
Yeah. So it was that kind of. They thought bits of plaster were dropping on them,
Wow, that's fantastic.
Amazing.
Great little wind-ups, aren't they? Those sort of people.
Yeah, I mean the stories of the things that the two of those used to get up to are be like, putting costumes on and going into restaurants and getting kicked out, and just going back then to get the revenge on them. It just,
Yeah.
absolute chaos. Wonderful characters, but these are the characters that made show business.
Yeah, they did. All those digs that people used to sort of talk about, the places you'd go, and but you'd meet up in the digs after the shows, wouldn't you? And that's where the stories were made. Just
I
brilliant.
mean, there's so many tales. I mean, it's like with Albert Saveen. You used to. I mean, I used to love sitting in the wings watching shows, but also backstage listening to the stories.
Yes.
And with the generation that I grew up with, you got the stories of people like the Crazy Gang and the antics that they got up to. Like,
Wow.
One of the stories I remember being told was Bud Flanagan. He was a real practical joker, as was Monsieur Eddie Gray. And this one show, one of the girls had got a really quick change, and she got complete change into new shoes and everything. And on one show, they nailed her shoes to the stage. Just things like that. And if the digs weren't so good, they'd sew bits of fish and that into the lining of the curtains. And just practical jokes like that. Yeah.
Amazing. They're great days. You don't really hear that anymore because we just do hotels, don't we? And we go home, or we have a pandemic and don't even go to work. All these things have changed.
Oh, conversational.
One of my Eyes and Teeth guests, which I posted yesterday, actually, was the wonderful Sherrie Hewson. And I forgot to talk to her about this wonderful TV show that you did together. And it was hosted by Stephen Mulhern. And was it Get Your Act Together or something?
Yeah, I mean, this is I've been fortunate with the plate spinning because picking up from Wolfgang Barcelli, I naturally became the person to call for the TV work.
Yes.
So we did. I've done 3 generation games.
Wow, is that with 3 different hosts?
Yeah, the first one was Jim Davidson.
Brilliant.
The second one wasn't actually aired, and that was the first time that we worked with Paul O'Grady.
Okay.
He did a pilot episode, and he was amazing performing at it. He hosted it wonderfully, and he took part in everything: the potter's wheel, the plate spinning, smashed the plates, and everything. He was great, but there just wasn't a gel there that made it work, and it didn't end up happening. But the pilot is out there somewhere. And then the last time was with Mel and Sue. There was a 2-episode one, but I mean, we've done so many. I don't know how many TV appearances with the plate spinning, which has been great. From the sublime to the ridiculous, we did 3 money programs. Where the plates would illustrate key points that they were being talked about.
Okay.
Markets crashed, or the sales are dropping.
They could have done with you last year when they were showing all the slides every day, on the, or even this year. Just sort of where it's going.
Put
up
them
and
on
down.
The plates.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is exactly what we were doing. We
Wow.
did years of that, and I mean the Sherrie Hewson one was great fun because I was one of the first acts that they spoke to about this new show that they'd got the concept of.
Okay, brilliant.
They'd spoken to Penn and Teller, they'd spoken to Hans Clark, and then they were speaking to me. So that's quite nice to be lumped in with the first 3,
Yes.
And they said, we love the magic, but we like this idea of your plate spinning. They came up and visited me here, and a lot of the team, funny enough, were the same team that had done Britain's Got Talent.
Okay.
So there was a crossover there. And, it was really nice talking to them because they'd got this kind of approach where they wanted to show how difficult the skill was. They didn't want to cheapen anything because obviously you're worried about how things are going to be portrayed. They said, we want to team you up with a celebrity and you teach them the skill and then present an act with them. So I said, yeah, that'd be great. I said, but if we're doing this, because of the nature of how I do the plate spinning, because they're just any plates, it's just buy a plate from wherever. I wanted to do it with somebody that could sell it because I knew that they would struggle, no matter who it is, to be able to perfect the skill to a level where they could do it as a dramatic performance, the way I do it as a dramatic performance.
That's interesting, yeah.
So
it's a massive build-up, isn't it? It's not just learning an act and doing it. every night that you do it, it's different. It can go any way, but you always master it. And it's just such a brilliant, it's not like, oh, number 2 is going to go at that time. Number 4 is going to go. Number 10 is going to go. You have no idea which one's going to wobble. And it's just the most amazing build up to a crescendo of an act as well. It's great.
Well, it's me versus gravity, isn't it?
Yes. Which we all get in old age, but yes.
But the thing is, I said to the team, if you've got somebody on your wish list that, no disrespect to reality TV, if you've got somebody that's, for a better term, an old pro that has been in the business, that understands how to make something funny,
Yes,
and that will put the effort in and also work towards the big reaction, then I think we can work something. And they came back and after about the 3rd meeting, they said, we think we've got the right person for you. And they said, what do you think about Sherrie Hewson? It was like, yes.
it was so perfect.
She was amazing. I mean, she spent time here in my studio 5 days a week. We were doing 5, 6, 7 hours a day, just honing it and working it and building it. She practiced and practiced.
That's almost Strictly Come Dancing territory, isn't it? Sort of like learning a craft like that, as dedicated. You have to be.
Yeah, I mean, it was about 5 weeks of that.
Was it really?
Yeah, it wasn't overnight. We had cameras everywhere. I mean, the studio I'm sitting in now, we got cameras hanging from the ceiling and all over the place, recording everything, literally everything. And then Stephen Mullen came up and did a surprise visit, which was really nice because they got that on camera.
Oh, that's nice.
And true to form, Sherrie smashed a plate as he walked in. And I mean, it's great because I live in, the Stoke-on-Trent area, Newcastle-under-Lyme, the birthplace of Philip Astley, who invented the circus.
Yes.
And it's also in the heart of the potteries.
There's enough plates to go around.
Yeah. All the pot banks know me. I can go in, mass buy them. And, Sherrie got through 1,000 plates on that.
Well, that answers my next question. 1,000 plates in that week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of crockery.
All that duration of the rehearsals and everything, 5 weeks of practice, the actual filming, the rehearsal for filming and everything. Yeah, there was, that's what is that, like a couple hundred plates a week, isn't it?
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
You got enough on your plate, but you've got hopefully they covered your plates. Financially.
I mean, they were amazing, and
you out.
I found that with a lot of TV companies that, if you talk to them, then I've been fortunate, touch wood, where they've been great. There's only one time that the plate spinning's gone horrendously wrong whilst filming, and that was we did an advert for the cinemas with Simon Weston, the Falklands veteran.
Yes.
And he had got to walk through like a labyrinth of spinning plates. So I got all this room full of spinning plates that had all been spray painted red. And it was to get people to donate blood platelets for the National Health Service. And all the plates represented the platelets. And I sprayed a load of them up, couriered them down to them. They were there ready. There's different kinds of plates. There's plates that are really well made, that are hard, that won't break, they'll bounce. There's plates that'll smash, and then there's plates that if you put a knife and fork to them, they'll shatter. There's different kinds of plates.
Okay.
What I didn't know, and the company didn't tell me, is that the plates had arrived safely, and then somebody had a go at respraying them down there and smashed a lot of them. And they went out to the local market, bought a load of replacement plates, sprayed them all up. Then I turn up on the day, set all the racks up. They give me these plates, and it was like spinning digestive biscuits. They were just like cutting to pieces. So that was a tough day filming, making these really naff plates spin and keeping them going. Yeah.
Oh, blimey, that's a shame because it's a craft, isn't it? That you need to get right, and it needs to be set up properly. But someone else gets hold of it and makes it go wrong for you. That's a shame because you've been practicing for so long.
Yeah, I mean, we got it, and we got it in the end, and they got the shot, but it just took a lot longer than it should have done. I mean, if the footage would probably be hilarious, to be honest, because I had to be out of shot as well, so I couldn't be seen. So I'm like scurrying around like a
how did you
mouse on my hands and
manage
knees.
that? Wow.
Yeah, and just kind of keeping them going, shoving my arm in the air, just kind of, keeping this labyrinth of plates going from my hands and knees, which was crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy, because the focus on that in that part of the act is that everyone's watching you, and they're saying, get over there, and because they're spread out across the stage, and there's, what is there, 12? Is it 10 or 12?
Yeah, 12 on the back, and then the 3 that go in the mouthpiece. Yes, it's
Of
15 in
course.
total.
So, but it's just the build up of it. It's such a wonderful piece. Now,
Well, it's like
I'm
a gag, isn't it?
yes,
It's like a gag. You set it up as you go along, and then there's the payoff at the end.
meeting Alison. Where did you meet Alison? I know you've toured the world with Alison Ford, your wife, and she's a performer in her own right as well. She's a trained dancer, choreographer, makeup artist. Where did you guys meet?
Well, that was a funny one, because the assistant that was working with me before then, she'd been with me for several years, and we did a gig. We were asked by Major Michael Parker to fly out to Seville to work World Expo for Prince Charles and Princess Diana, which
Okay.
was a lovely event in Seville. And when we came back from that, she decided, I don't want to do this anymore. So it was kind of, oh my God, we need a new assistant. So we got the 2 shows going at the time. So my dad needed girls working his show, I needed girls working mine, and there was 2 people came for an audition with the shows, one called Kim and one called Alison. And Kim was just a little bit older than Alison, and the work I got required a 21-year-old, and Alison, being the 18-year-old, she went as head girl eventually in my dad's show briefly, and Kim started doing the tours with me. We were running the 2, and then as my dad slowed off, I mean, I worked with Alison on and off in my dad's show, and she'd come in as the second girl in mine sometimes, and we just kind of grew closer and closer. And then Kim, she'd done about 7 years working for me. We're still great mates, keep in touch. And Alison became head girl in my show. And it was just, a natural progression, because we'd been really great mates after all those years. We just got closer and closer.
Yeah.
And we ended up together. And that was really wonderful, because it allowed us to take the act into a new level, because we were together all the time. And it meant that things became slicker, and we were more in tune. So it's that situation of, I don't have to look to pass something to Alison. I can throw it over my
Yes,
shoulder. Bump, she's
she
got
knows.
it.
Yeah,
I
she's
know
there.
she's there. She knows. Yeah. But I mean, before that, she'd worked pantomimes as the Juve. She'd done shows like that. She did training in makeup artistry and special effects. And her parents weren't in the business, but I think it was her grandfather was a tap dancer. And going back, we've discovered that her great-great-grandmother was a Native American who came over to the UK in the Buffalo Bill show.
Wow.
So the show business link is there for Alison as well. So it's really
That's
great.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So
lovely to hear that. Wow,
it's really nice.
yes. And as long as I've known you, I've known Alison as well. So it's Andrew and Alison that I know since we met and started to work together. And we've done so many shows together since then. And it's been wonderful. Every time I know you're on the bill, I know we're in for a great night, whether it's a variety gig or sometimes we get paid, if it's or the charity dues that we do. But you've done so much, from like presenting Cabaret, Big Top, the Royal Albert Hall, the Brit Awards, Commonwealth Games, Glastonbury Festival, West End Theatres. But the biggest show for you and Alison comes when you come down to Eastbourne in 2012 in a show called Re-Educating Archie, where you appeared as a variety act in a stage version of the show. Obviously, I'm talking about my show. It's not the biggest thing you've done, but it was a wonderful week that we had, wasn't it? And we had Dave Evans, Helen Moore Jackson, David Pauline Conway, Steve Barclay, and myself with the original Archie Andrews. It was a great little bit of history that we brought back together and put on the stage. And we had to have the best variety acts in the country to do it. I'm so glad you were available.
That's it. They weren't available, so you had me.
So I didn't want to do the gag. I didn't want to go there.
Well,
No,
that was
I
really
respect you
great.
too much. Yeah.
That was a great show. I mean, top marks for putting that together. And I think that's another reason why the two of us get on so well, because we both love the history of the
Yes.
business and we both respect it. And characters from the past need to be remembered, and it's important to keep these names alive. So when you help to bring Archie Andrews back into the foreground, that was absolutely incredible. And to see Archie working well with yourself, assisted by Steve Hewlett, was great. That again, another slice of show business history. And I mean, earlier on you mentioned about my Victorian Wonders show. That's exactly the same. Again, it's that thing of sometimes you need to bring the past into the present.
Yes.
Because you need something new, and there's not always something new out there. So it's great to look at something that's from the past, bring it into the present, dust it off, and just change the tempo of it to suit the 21st century, and present that, because the old things have not been seen, so they are new now.
Of course, it's new to a new generation, isn't it? Which is exactly what you're doing and what you bring, and it's so nice. And I'm so glad. Yeah, we got you to do an illusion show, and I think you've done some Houdini, didn't you? And then the second half, you done the plate spinning. So we got two spots, fantastic spots, and it was just such a highlight in the show. So it was so nice to have you on board. But
it's a great cast that was. I mean, Dave Evans as well. I mean, another legend of the business. I mean, and of course, the dynasty continued with his son Lee, didn't it?
Yes, it's nice when you get someone who's like yourself, sort of a great father, entertainer, and just as talented in the son, and it's in the genes, I guess. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the nice thing, but I mean, the thing I always love as well is the people that come into the business, the people that aren't born into it,
yes,
that actually take that leap and do something with it. I mean, one of the comedy characters that we were fortunate enough to work with was somebody that changed direction from their original career, and that was Harry Hill.
He was a doctor, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, again, such a nice guy, really lovely. And I mean, that was a lovely show that we were with, the horn section, which was Alex Horn. It was a jazz show. So it was literally, you turn up and the band would make something up to suit what you're doing, and you would do something and someone else would come and get involved. And it was kind of reasonably unrehearsed and unscripted.
Yes.
It's kind of, let's see where this takes us.
Yeah,
that was
brilliant.
Great show to be involved with. That was really great fun.
Yeah, Alex is very funny, and I love when he works with his band, because their improvisation skills are immaculate, aren't they? They're so funny. To be off the cuff like that.
Oh, contributional.
It's can I talk about the Van Buren's Victorian Theatre of Wonders? So when you do these acts, by the way, you've got this expectation when you do the spinning plates of like, he's not going to do them all by the end, because you got 12 plates and then you're balancing some on your chin at the end. Think, all right, he's not going to do it. And it's the excitement of that act that builds, and people are laughing because of the nervousness. You build these nerves in the audience. We really want you to do it, but we don't want you to drop them. I don't know what it is. What is that expectation that people want by the end of the spinning plates? They do want you to do it, but they laugh if it's about to go wrong.
Yeah, it's a little. It's like a safe version of the trapeze, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. You don't want him to die. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of. There's that little nagging little devil that goes, what would happen if they fell? And it's the same with the plate spinning, just a little bit safer. It's kind of, they want to see, the audience wants to see them spin, but you know what? Sort of secretly, you also want to see one smash. There's that little kind of.
It's the car crash TV. It's the cruelty of audiences today, isn't it? But you do the same with, you got one of my friends up actually to help tie you up when you did the Houdini box in the show. I've seen you do it a couple of times, but it's so funny because you've got a lot of taglines, you've got a lot of gags that you do within your act as well. And
Yeah.
You've been around comedy for so many years, so you know the lines and you know what to do, and it just really works. You used actually Jeff Felix on the Archie show, and Jeff makes the wonderful ventriloquist dolls of many people. He used to help Ray Alan, and he used to help Peter Brough fix, repaint Archie Andrews, and so it was really funny to see him up on stage. But it was just such a funny routine. Audience participation is very important within some of your sets. And how do you think, if it's not allowed in the future, how do you think that's going to change? And have you rewritten a lot of your shows with the social distance in mind?
It's a scary thing, because I've spent so much time. I mean, again, growing up around my mum and dad, some of the effects that I do were their effects, and I've continued them, but I've kind of turned them into my effects by putting a new presentation to it and new scripting. And I realised it'd be about 25 years ago now that comedy is king. But I never wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to be somebody that entertained. I wanted to be a showman that entertained. So I never take the leap of going out there and telling gags, because
Yes.
I don't think I'm good enough to tell gags. It's such an art form in itself.
Okay.
But I like to put in funny lines that make the audience smile.
Yes.
I'm not going for belly laughs. I'm going for this. This is fun. This is enjoyable. And I think mixing that with the magic kind of works, because it stops there being a pompous kind of side to it. It makes it, this is accessible for the audience. It makes it fun. It's about entertainment. I mean, people say, "Oh, you're a magician." No. You're a plate spinner. No, I'm an entertainer. I'm a performer. They're the tools that I use to entertain the audience. There's all the skills, but the tools that we use. So the comedy bit is something that I've had great fun developing and kind of dropping in there as kind of natural lines. So it's a line that sounds quite often as though it's impromptu, off the cuff.
Okay.
Even though it's been rehearsed a million times,
Yes.
worked a million times. It's just that kind of situational comedy that you weave into an effect.
It's like a little sitcom, isn't it? Like a sitcom on stage,
Exactly. And I think if you're getting a volunteer up, it helps to put them at ease, because I don't like to take the mickey out of members of the audience. I like to work with them where there'll be a laugh at their expense, but they're laughing with it.
Yes.
So it's not putting them down. And I really enjoy doing that and playing with that kind of technique. So the thought of that being taken away with the social distancing and the aftermath of COVID, I think is awful. I think that's really going to change the dynamic of my show.
Truly, yeah. Let's hope we come out the other end and those rules are relaxed, that you can start using people again. Because how much percentage of the people do you need in the show? Is it 50-50, or is it higher, a lot higher than that?
It depends what we're doing. I mean, we've got so many different shows that we present on different scales. I mean, I remember at one point I was I'd flown back from Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates. We'd done 3 months over there with our Circus of Aladdin show, and the props were in a shipping container coming north through the Suez Canal, and at the same time our cruise ship show was on the Aurora going the opposite way through the Suez Canal.
Wow.
Those two ships passed, so there's 4 hours of equipment at sea there, and at the same time as they were passing in the Suez, we were doing a cabaret in Blackpool. So it was like there's 2 hours and 45 minutes of equipment on the go at that one point in time.
Blimey.
So there's a lot of stuff, but the problem is you create the effects for the environment and the audience.
Yes.
So quite often people want the plate spinning, so I'll put the plate spinning in. But we do theme shows, so it's like the outdoor stage show. There's no point trying to do the vanishing motorbike on that because it won't fit. So there's different effects that work in different ways and practicality wise. So for the outdoor show, the Victorian Wonders show, I'd say there's about 35 to 40% of that show involves the audience, because that's a way of bringing the audience into, well, your audience outside, they're not sitting down, they're not in a building, they can just walk past. So you've got to grab them, hold their attention, and bear in mind that the closest person to you is probably 8 meters away, and the furthest away person could be 60, 70, 80 meters away. So you've got to work big and visual, but bring them in. So the audience participation is great for that.
Eyes and teeth.
And you've got the experience really of not just, the few decades that you've been doing the business, but you've been studying. So you know sort of where to fit the audience participation or the comedy into your act, because you've been studying magic and circus for quite a few years now. And if we talk about the Philip Astley project, can you tell us in a nutshell what this means to you? Because I know it's your heart and I know it's your passion. And I've got a lovely book on my bookshelf here about the project. What does he mean, and why is it important? Because we were talking about archiving these wonderful performers and not letting people forget them. And Philip Astley, I knew nothing about him until you brought him to our attention. And what you've done is incredible.
Well, Philip Astley is still reasonably unknown, but he's far more known now than he was, let's say, 10 years ago. Philip Astley was born in 1742 in Newcastle-under-Lyme, where I live. And he went on.
Is that a coincidence?
Yes.
Wow.
Well, there's a massive coincidence, because Philip Astley became a military hero. And his father was a cabinet maker. And then, leaving the army, he started putting on riding lessons. And he moved to London and set up a riding school at Halfpenny Hatch, using money that was left from an uncle who was a postmaster in Newcastle. Then in 1768, he set it in a ring. And then he started putting demonstrations on as well, and performance, and gradually then started to incorporate other people into the performance. He brought in the clowns from the pantomimes, the jugglers and rope walkers and acrobats from the marketplaces, and set it in a 42-foot diameter ring, which is the standard size for a circus ring.
Incredible.
So this young man from Newcastle-under-Lyme, who became a cabinet maker, then invented the circus, which, I was talking about my dad earlier, who was born in Sandbach, but ran away to join the circus, became a cabinet maker, then ended up living in Newcastle-under-Lyme.
Wow.
So it's kind of the two lives in reverse. And with Astley, when you think before him, all the ingredients were out there, but he put it together. He created what became the circus, and he built amphitheatres. So they were a circular building, circus ring, seating, orchestra pit, and then a stage at the back. And then he toured these all over the world. There's a great story of him going to Paris. Marie Antoinette invited him over there, and of course Marie Antoinette, the story everyone knows about her is the French Revolution. So while he was over there, he built the amphitheatre. The revolution happened. He was captured, managed to escape because he was friends with the royal family, came back. The revolution went ahead. When it calmed down, Astley went back to see if his theatre was still there. It was still standing. And then he found out that this upstart Napoleon had been using it as a barracks. So he got in touch with the government and charged them rent for the use. So he was
all the way.
Oh, businessman all the way. And he died in Paris and buried in Père Lachaise Cemetery. And he was forgotten. That was it. The grave 10 years later, his son was buried in it. Then it disappeared. There was no stone there. And cutting a long story short, in 1982, my dad suggested to the local council here, why don't you theme the carnival Philip Astley? And they said, who's he? It's like, this is crazy, he was born here. So they put a carnival on themed around him, and it was a one-off event, and that was it. Then 1991, I was, at the time, massive friends with a lot of the Royal Dalton School of Sculpture artists. And I persuaded one mate of mine, Andy Edwards, to make a statue, life-size statue of Philip Astley. And I mean, Andy Edwards, most people will know his work, but not him. Because if you think of the Liverpool Beatles walking down the street, he made them. That's one of his famous statues.
Nice.
He's gone on to do great stuff, but his first life-size was my Philip Astley statue. And 1992, my father and I put a load of events together, and it all went a little bit pear-shaped. The council got involved. Somebody saw it as a career opportunity. My dad and I were pushed out, and stuff happened, but
Oh.
it fizzled. We walked away. The statue went into a shipping container, and bang, door shut, and we walked away from Philip Astley for years and years and years.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, we were kind of heartbroken and defeated, and just nobody at the time saw the potential selling point for the town. Then 2009, Alison and I just finished working a Spiegel tent show in Dubai, and we came back from a 3-month cruise for P&O, and I said, you know what, we're always away. Wouldn't it be great to do something to keep us a bit more in England or the UK and spend more time at home and start a family? And one night I was lying in the bath contemplating the universe, and I suddenly thought, what about Philip Astley? Is he worth, a third try? And I kind of started kicking it off from there, really. Again, 2009. I realised that 2018 would be the 250th anniversary of Astley creating the start of the circus. So from 2009 to 2018, I not gently, I did a big build up and shouting about him, and we got the statue out. We took it to Gandhi's Circus, put it on display. It went to the Edinburgh Festival. It went to Sheffield Fairground and Circus Archive Museum. The statue was reborn, as it were. Gradually, people started to listen, and the thing that really worked, we pulled together a committee, the Philip Astley Project Committee, and it's all local creatives, the New Vic Theatre and the Brampton Museum and Staffordshire Film Archive. People from all walks of local life came together, and the thing that really caught the imagination was, I said, when you think of Stratford-upon-Avon, because I'd just finished advising on a production of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, I said, look, you look at Dubai, you look at Stratford-upon-Avon, they very much rely on Shakespeare as their key unique selling point. So when you look at what Shakespeare's done for Stratford-upon-Avon, what can Philip Astley do for Newcastle-under-Lyme? Because people don't go into shops so much anymore. They don't go into town centres so much anymore. You put events on and get a unique selling point. It's a purpose for people to come to town centres, and that will generate income for the town. So it kind of caught the imagination. Astley's our Shakespeare, and the rest's history. We did unveilings in Monte Carlo to Astley, and his monument's gone up, and
that's perfect.
2018, 100 events, and the V&A getting involved, and so it was massive. Yeah, it was great.
So Dad must have been very happy when you finally all this started to come back again, and people were taking notice of the Astley project and the water rats as well. We've all been interested in reading your book and sort of learning more about him ourselves. And there is a few people with circus within the water rats as well. So it's so interesting. And I'm looking at the mastermind. Really, it's so nice to see what you've done. And you've got behind you a poster of the Van Buren story. Your family story can be seen on that DVD, can't it? And is there any way you can get the DVD, Andrew?
Yeah, if anyone wants it. I mean, a lot of people are doing away with DVDs now, so we're looking at eventually streaming a version. But the documentary is available on DVD. If you do a search for the Van Buren story and Staffordshire Film Archive, then you can get it, or just find my website, vanburen.org.uk, drop me an email, and we'll sort something out. So the documentary's out there. It charts the family history in a lot more detail, and tells a little bit of the Astley story there as well. But yeah, it's nice to keep these memories and people of the past alive.
I'm very luckily met your parents, your lovely mum and dad, Fred and Connie, at your dad's 80th birthday party, was it?
Yeah. It was mum and dad. Mum's 80th and dad's 80th was quite a big do, really. Yeah, yourself was there, but you were shooting off as well.
I had a cruise the next day, I think. Yeah.
So I'm eternally indebted to you doing that mad journey from Eastbourne to Newcastle-under-Lyme and then back down to, was it Gatwick or Heathrow?
It would have been one of those, yes. But it was worth it. Jimmy Cricket was on the bill. It was such a lovely time to meet your parents. They were so lovely. That they're so welcoming to people in the business. I remember speaking to them Secondod's service, you know, in Liverpool a couple of years ago, and they just know everybody, you know, and you know everybody. It's just so nice to be welcomed, and I have felt really welcomed, and I want to thank you again for inviting me to the Water Rats, because you were one of those key people, and so it's
Well,
nice to get to meet people like that.
that's the great thing with the Water Rats, though, isn't it? I mean, I was asked a few days ago about the Water Rats on another interview, and tied in with the passing of Prince Philip. And you know, when you look at it, it's such a cross section of show business within the Water Rats.
Yes.
And the great thing is it's a great leveler as well. You know, we're all talking on a level, and brothers, and quietly raising coins for good causes, which is wonderful. And you know, so many people say, but we've not heard of the Water Rats. It's like, well, no, we're just quietly doing good and putting a little bit back in, and I think it's nice if you can do that.
It's making people aware of Archie Andrews, Philip Astley, the Water Rats, you know, and the people that have come up within the Water Rats, and it's still running today, you know, and we can't wait to get back, and hopefully it's something that can keep going on and on. But you have given me some bookings over the time. I've worked with you, as I say, with Dougie Chapman, but Nigel Norman, I've had a couple of gigs because he keeps booking me and you for his birthday, and it was down to you that I got that gig. So thank you for that. So Nigel Norman was, I think I'd done his 65th and 70th, I think.
No, 60 and 65, I think.
That's it. Don't tell him I aged him. It's down to you that I got to work with Cannon and Ball, and that was on my tick list for many years. And
it was great because just before Bobby sadly passed away, which it's funny how that show came about, because Nigel phoned me out of the blue years ago, and it was for his mum's birthday.
Yes.
And the phone call went, "Hi, I'd like to book you for a birthday party." And my initial reaction was, well, I don't really do birthday parties, but I know some children's entertainers that are very good if you tell me what area you're in.
Right.
And he said, no, it's not for a child. He said, this is for my mum. He said, I've got this idea of putting a show together, and I've got a wish list of performers I want on it that I've seen, and you're on the wish list. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So, you know, suddenly this is up my street. I said, well, who else have you
Literally.
got? Yeah. And he said, well, I've got a big band. I've got Jimmy Cricket, and I've got Ray Alan and Lord Charles.
Wow.
It's like, where do I sign up? Yeah, great. And we went along and did that, and it was wonderful. And we just became great pals from that point on. And then when he wanted to do his own birthday party, he phoned me and said, can we pull something together? Would you help me? It's like, yeah, of course. And we created a wish list. And we've done that a couple of times since then. And you've been on the wish list, obviously.
Oh, it's so nice. So thanks for putting me forward. But he's such a wonderful host, isn't he, Nigel? And he puts on a great evening for anybody. And he asked me for a couple of names, and I mentioned Bobby Davro. There was a couple of names. I said, what about Cannon and Ball? I said, I'm not sure if they're still working. And then he got in contact with Phil Dale, and they booked him. I thought he probably won't get Cannon and Ball. He won't get them. And he emailed me a few weeks later. He said, Steve, I've got Cannon and Ball. You're on with Cannon and Ball. I was delighted. I took my mum to the gig. And that was 2019. Yeah. Oh, it was brilliant. So thanks for that. So I hope your work and success continues. And this summer, you can take your wonderful Emporium out on the road and start doing these shows again. Does your daughter Harley show any signs of the business yet?
She's a massive character, that's for sure. She's 6 going on 16.
Yes. Scary, isn't it?
As you well know.
I've got two of them. Yes.
Exactly. And do you know, it's funny because Harley, she loves the business, but we're not really pushing her towards anything.
Sure.
But obviously she's soaking it up because, you know, of our homes like a museum to show business anyway. There's props everywhere and posters and flight cases all over the place. So
it's inevitable. It'll be in the back of her mind, whatever happens, I think.
It's going to be there. And since the lockdown, she spent a lot of time talking to the Rollerson family.
Okay.
Great friends and brother, Water Rollo, and Lucy and Tommy and Michelle. And
Lovely.
Now it's got to the point where they kind of just talk to each other anyway. All the phones are up and that.
Yes.
And it's like, Harley, have you been doing your schoolwork? This is a conversation a couple of weeks ago. No. Why have you not done your homework? I've been practicing the ghost gag.
She's been talking to Rollo, hasn't she?
Yes.
Definitely.
So
You can only blame him for that.
And so now she'll, if she sees something, then she'll start recreating it, and she starts putting her own little shows on. And it's like, now that things are having to go outside, we went on the yard the other day, and we've got the lorries and the vans and that on the yard, and I suddenly noticed that Harley was stood in the middle of the yard, chuntering away at the car. And it's like, what's this? And inside the car, she'd lined up all of her cuddly toys. So she was doing a drive-in show for her cuddly toys,
Well, she's got
So
used
there's
to
something
the
there.
system. Yeah. Wow.
But
Well,
I think she
She's
likes
doing the car
comedy.
park gigs already.
She likes comedy, though. She loves
Okay.
comedy, and she's not quite got it yet, but she's already deconstructing gags and trying to create gags. And
Nice.
there's an understanding there that
Yeah.
she's developing on her own, which is really lovely.
Be a little script writer in the making there. That sounds good.
Could be.
Yes. Well, Andrew Van Buren, and please pass Alison my love, and your dad
Will do.
Fred, and
Yeah.
really send him all my best. And we're always thinking of you, and dear Connie as well. But thank you so much for being part of Eyes and Teeth. You're an honour to know, mate. It's really nice to be a brother and a
Likewise.
friend. But thank you so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks ever so much for asking me along. You're one in a million.
I was one in a raffle. Someone had to do it. Thank you so much, Andrew Van Buren.
Eyes and Teeth.
Thanks, Mr. Van Buren. That was wonderful. To delve deeper into the world of Andrew Van Buren and Alison, go to their website at www.vanburen.org.uk. Keep up to date on all of the Van Buren's projects on Facebook at Andrew Van Buren or on Twitter at VanBurenOrg. Today's quote comes from another great showman, P.T. Barnum. Well, they're laughing anyway, kid, so might as well get paid. And here's another one. The noblest art is that of making others happy. Eyes and Teeth is written, produced and hosted by Steve Hewlett. Vocals by Larissa, Lola and Nina Hewlett. Additional vocals by Rich T. The Eyes and Teeth music and jingles are produced and performed by Water Rat, Kevin Dean. Join me on another Eyes and Teeth Grand Order of Water Rat special when I chat with record-breaking Baby Rat, meaning he's possibly the longest serving baby rat of all time. Close brackets, last proposed Water Rat. He's a worldwide sensation, the brilliant entertainer, Steve Rawlins.